Hey, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Red Hat channel. You are tuned in live for another episode of Demo Deep Dive. And we're very excited to have you here because, well, it's the middle of the summer, but also we've got a special guest, Ricardo, joining us today to be talking about what it means to have digital sovereignty with data, with AI, with applications. And this is another episode in our series of breaking down these open source technologies, the projects, the people, and the communities that build into Red Hat products. And so while we'll be talking about OpenShift today, the purpose of this series is to kind of help you learn and help you understand what it looks like to put these technologies into practice. And so if you haven't seen this show before, Demo Deep Dive, I welcome you. Please let us know where you're joining us from, even if you've seen the show before. And if you're coming back, well, we appreciate you. Good to see you again. My name is Cedric Clyburn. I'm a developer advocate here at Red Hat, and I kind of help people learn about these technologies. I'm joined by Ricardo Cavero. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, perfect, Cedric. Thank you.
So Ricardo is a principal portfolio architect working here at Red Hat, but I know that's just a title. Please feel free to introduce yourself, give us a fun fact, and tell us what you've been working on.
Thank you, Cedric, and really happy to be back here. I was here maybe a couple of months ago, and it's a really, really cool show. So I work at Red Hat. I've been here for almost 7 years, and I'm a technical marketing manager, as you said. What I do is to try to show how Red Hat solutions can help customers and partners and put it in a way that is consumable in terms of interactive demos, architectures, and things that are really easy to consume. Fun fact, I'll be watching the Spain match tonight, of course. I'll be suffering. Well, let's see how it goes.
Good luck, guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
I think I'm on Team France over here, but that's okay. You know, like a little action. Well, awesome. And I also want to give a shout out to Rohan, who's the co-host for the show, working the studio in the background, making sure everything's possible. So for example, with this show and with the demos, and what Ricardo does is we put these demos on a platform that you can go to, which is interact.redhat.com. And if you type this in or scan it in the QR code at the top left of the stream here, you can go to this page and see all of these different live demos and experiences of projects that cover the latest in AI. So how you can serve a large language model on Linux or Kubernetes, or application platforms with OpenShift, and how to scale and manage traffic, security, and much more, as well as Linux automation, right? How to use Ansible and Linux together to do event-based activities, you know, when someone creates a database, spin off something else, right? And so all of these different demos and interactive experiences are all available at any time for you to check out, including the one that we're going to be demoing today. So I recommend you check it out at interact.redhat.com. And without further ado, let's kind of introduce the topic we're going to be talking about today, because digital sovereignty, it's a huge, I guess, buzzword right now. And I've seen it myself when it comes to my work in AI, where, you know, you might have a leading model lab like, Claude, that's releasing a model, right, to the world. And as an end user, right, you're able to query it, you're able to pay for an API. But what happens when other situations and regulatory bodies, have an effect on the release of that, right? Well, then developers can't use that model anymore. They have to look for alternatives. And so a big idea for digital sovereignty is, hey, how can we take control of our application workloads, our data, everything that's happening for our enterprise, and be able to run that on-prem or in the cloud? So I think that's kind of the basis of it, right, Ricardo? Or
yes,
I'm not too familiar.
It is, absolutely, Cedric. And it's not only about the data, but there are several aspects to sovereignty. It's not only, where your data is running or who can access it, but it's also the technology that is underlying that data, the platform where it's actually being served. And also you will need to be able to provide evidence to auditors as well. that you're compliant to the regulations that apply to your country and to your business area, your vertical. So yeah, but definitely is that at the end is the core of it is just being in control of your data and where it lives and how it is operated.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't think of a subject that's more important right now, especially because you're based in EU, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah, there are lots of regulations here. So you have GDPR, you have DORA, you have many at European Union level, but also at a country level, and they're being more and more enforced in the last years. So it's super, super important. Also in the United States are regulations that there needs to that are gaining a lot of importance. But yeah, here in Europe, it's been around for a while now.
I think it's important, and I'm excited to see how this demo kind of brings together all of these capabilities because it's all from OpenShift, right?
Yes. Mhm. So what we're trying to show is how OpenShift and actually OpenShift Platform Plus is a great foundation to build your cloud sovereign, your sovereign cloud or your sovereign platform, because it's a bundle that starts with the OpenShift platform itself, but then it has other very important components like Red Hat Advanced Cluster Management for Kubernetes, a Red Hat Advanced Cluster Security for Kubernetes, and a data foundation that complement all this and cover these pillars that I've been mentioning about your platform, the technology that you use, the observability and auditability. So yeah, that's why we want to position OpenShift Platform Plus as a great starting point and foundation for it.
Nice. Well, sweet. Well, I'm excited to see. I'll stop sharing on my side. I'll let you pull it up, and if you could walk us through the demo, I might ask some questions because I'm not too familiar with the
Absolutely.
subject. And for anyone viewing out there, feel free to use the chat to ask any questions to our expert Ricardo, and we'll do our best to answer it in real time too on the stream. So yeah, without further ado.
Thank you, Cedric. Let me just share my screen. Right. So let me know if you can see it. I guess you can.
It looks great. Yeah.
Okay. So what we're showing here is the dashboard of Red Hat Advanced Cluster for management for Kubernetes that was mentioned before. So here what we have is a hub cluster, if you will, from where we can deploy all the clusters that we need to run our workloads and not only deploy them, but control their whole full life cycle, right? So yeah, if we go here and, all right, just have some callouts here explaining what we're seeing for people who want to go to this demo after the show, if they want to know more. And just for everyone to know, this demo that we're showing is just part of the whole sovereignty demo. So it has more parts that in the link that will be shared. Everything is available there in the different chapters. Okay, so we have an administrator view. What we want to do is go to the fleet management. Fleet management is what we said. We're going to either deploy a new cluster or view what's happening, see what's happening with clusters that are already deployed. In our case, we're going to deploy a new cluster. So it's just as easy as going to the fleet management. And here we click on create cluster. In our case, we're going to choose Red Hat OpenShift virtualization for the infrastructure for the cluster. Why? Because we want, and it's a good practice that many customers decide to go for, they need to add a one more layer of isolation between the actual cluster and the infrastructure where it runs. So that's why they can deploy it on virtual machines, and they can deploy the nodes, the OpenShift nodes on it. So for this example, but it can be deployed directly on bare metal. It can be deployed on any cloud provider as well. But in our case, as we said, we're choosing that. We're choosing hosted. That means that the architecture that we're going to be using to deploy this cluster is hosted control planes. This means that the control nodes of the cluster run on a separate infrastructure as a worker nodes. So we have this hub that I've been mentioning from the beginning of the demo that is controlling all the rest of the cluster. In this way, what we have is a lot of independence on where we want to run the clusters, where the applications will be running, and we won't have an overhead there for the control nodes, because, as I said, the control nodes are deployed just once, and they will be serving all the rest of the clusters that we will deploy. That's a separation as well of duties, if you will. And in terms of sovereignty, is also separation of functions. So the nodes where all the control is done from, and the nodes that are actually running the workloads. So it has lots of advantages to go for this architecture, the hosted control plane.
And so when we think about the clusters, like, so OpenShift is a platform to manage different environments, right, and applications.
Yes.
And the clusters then are like, how would you describe them when we're managing with OpenShift, I guess?
So yeah, as you said, Cedric, the OpenShift is the platform where all your applications will run. And normally in a traditional cluster with no hosted control planes, you will need dedicated nodes for this control nodes. So the control nodes are where all the status of the cluster is kept, and where the operations of the cluster are managed from policies perspective, from hardware administration perspective. So all that requires dedicated nodes. So if you create a cluster, you normally have those control plane nodes, and then the worker nodes that run the actual applications, right? Gotcha. Imagine that for every cluster where you want to deploy applications, you need to have both worker nodes for the applications and control nodes. Then you're having an overhead, if you will, of control nodes. In this architecture, you just take and deploy the control nodes on one cluster, one type of infrastructure, whatever, and then you can spin from there different clusters just with the worker nodes where we will run the applications. So you don't replicate those control nodes per cluster.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, very cool. Kind of like if you have like a beehive, you have the queen bee, and then you have the worker bees, and then you just
That's a very good comparison. But yeah, that's it. That's how it works basically.
Cool.
So, and you have this wizard to deploy it. So you enter the cluster name, and this is important. What we see here, the cluster set. You can create cluster sets to is like a logical grouping for clusters that will be running the same type of workloads, for example, or workloads that will talk to each other, or more importantly for sovereignty, clusters that need to adhere or comply with some regulations. So imagine that you have some of the clusters in the EU, namely, I don't know, in Germany, and they need to be compliant with Germany regulations. But you have some of the clusters that are running in North America, and they need to be compliant to all the regulations. So you would have separate cluster sets for this, which is good, because the moment you create a cluster, once it's provisioned, because you're saying it will belong to a particular cluster set, it will inherit all the policies, all the definitions that are required for the region. And that way you don't need to build it once. I mean, every time you deploy a cluster, it will be defined once and applied from ACM to each cluster that you deployed. For example, here we have defined two different groups, a default cluster set and a managed cluster set. We're going to create our cluster in the managed cluster set. Then you choose the image of OpenShift that you want to deploy. This is very important as well in terms of sovereignty, because normally customers who go with cloud providers, sometimes they don't have the choice of the version of OpenShift that they want to deploy, because they need to just stick to what the cloud provider is using for their deployments. Or when they're doing upgrades, they are tied to the upgrade cycles of the cloud providers. In this case, with ACM, you have all control during the full life cycle. You decide which OpenShift version you want the cluster to have at the beginning when you deploy it, and then when you want to update it, you decide when to update it, which clusters to update, so you have the full control. You can decide if you want a single replica or you want high availability for your clusters. Normally, if it's a production cluster, you would go for replicas in different nodes so that you can have your workloads basculating between nodes in case of any issues. in this demo, because it's just a demo, it's just like sandbox environment, we don't need that. So we can go for single replica and save on costs of deployment. Okay, once we have all this, we can create pool nodes, or normally when you have this type of deployments of hosted control planes, you define a pool node for clusters in the region, for example, and you can take the or provision the cluster from that pool name, node pool name. In this case, we have a pool for EMEA, and we're deploying it in the EMEA region.
Right.
Here you can choose the storage mapping if you need to add storage classes, because in OpenShift you can use different types of storage. As we said, data foundation, which is a native to OpenShift, but you can use S3 buckets. You can use all the major storage providers that exist in the market. You can use them with OpenShift, and you can choose different storage classes for the different clusters that you create. This is the last step. You have a review of everything that you've configured, and you just click on create. It's as easy as that. Normally, depending on the resources that you've chosen, but normally it takes 5 to 10 minutes to deploy a new cluster. And that's much, much faster than using the classic deployment of having the control planes in the cluster that you're deploying. After a bit, you have your cluster that has been created. You have the summary of everything that's been done, and you're ready to manage it from ACM and manage the whole life cycle from it.
Nice. So you're saving time, you're saving resources, and I guess saving headache when you have to manage different geographical zones of environments.
Mm-hmm. And also, as I said, for sovereignty is good, because you say you have a central management place, and then the workloads can run anywhere. Imagine that you need them in another cloud provider zone, for example. You have it there, but you don't have the control there, and you make sure that workloads are completely independent, or the worker nodes and the workloads they run on top of them are completely independent.
Very nice. And so do you see people already using OpenShift Platform Plus? Like, is this already out and available, or?
It's been around for a while. So there are many customers using OpenShift Platform Plus. The good thing is that it's not something that's been created newly for sovereignty, but it's something that exists, and it has out-of-the-box capabilities to cover lots of the pillars.
Nice. And after the cluster is created, like, how do you ensure the compliancy? Like, is the fleet management part of that, or how does it play in?
So you do that with policies that you define at ACM level. So the framework, or the policy framework that ACM provides, is based on desired states. So you define that your cluster needs to have this state, this level of operators, this version of OpenShift, there's many replicas of nodes. And so ACM, the hub cluster, is continuously validating those policies and checking all the clusters and see if they're compliant with those policies. The moment there's a policy that is not being fulfilled by a cluster, the administrator will get a warning message, and you'll have it in the dashboard, and you can very, very easily, or get an alert if something happens. You can choose to define an automated resolution as well, so ACM can take care of that. But normally what customers do is to have a human in the loop always, and say, okay, I want to be warned, but I want to be the one approving the change to go back to the desired state.
Right. And is that, so it's all Kubernetes in the background, right? With
it's all Kubernetes, definitely.
Is it all just YAML?
Yeah. So policies the policies are all YAML manifests. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Very cool. If people are looking to get started and get hands-on with, digital sovereignty and do this on OpenShift, where do you recommend folks go?
Well, I think it's very, very important to have a very honest assessment on how they're running their platforms today, and the regulatory laws and regulations that they need to be compliant with. See where they're missing the mark these days, and then decide what to do and how they can solve this. So Red Hat offers an assessment. It's a workshop. It is a digital sovereignty assessment, and it's a very good place to start. There's also a tool which is called I think it's digital sovereignty something assessment, which is prior to this workshop that you can run yourself and see how compliant you are these days. So we can share the link to that as well, so that everyone who's interested can have a look at that. And then when they decide they want to start applying sovereignty, it's a very good starting point, the Red Hat assessment.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, we can totally drop that link in the chat. We'll pull it up. I'm wondering, like, what in the grand scheme of things, right? In the US, maybe I don't think about it as much because there's more leeway for people to do whatever they want with your data. But like for places like Europe and Asia, like, what does it mean to have that data sovereignty? And like, there's fines associated to non-compliance, right? Per person, per user. Like this, it really adds up, right?
And that's why those regulations, or there are very strong audits in some countries to make sure that you produce evidence that you have that sovereignty on the data. Otherwise, you can get definitely fines and lots of obstacles. And not only for the fines that you can get, is as well for your own good practice and good reputation. And because sovereignty is for any company, but it impacts mostly companies that handle very sensitive data, like financial institutions, banking institutions, definitely government and public sector, healthcare. They need to make sure that they're not going to be exposing data if there's an attack or something like that.
Yeah. And so do you see them running workloads more on premise, even with virtualization or not when it comes to that? Or do they kind of use a mix of AWS and GCP, and maybe some will need to run on-prem?
Yeah. I mean, there's the best option, and always what Red Hat recommends is a hybrid cloud. So having some on-premise, some on maybe private cloud, some on public cloud, in terms of, if you need some air-gapped environments, for example, you might want to run them on premises. But if you want to scale out at some point some of your deployments, imagine that you're expecting more traffic to your sites at some point. If you're selling something, you're a retailer, for example, you can scale out and use public cloud for that, but always being in control of who has access to your data, how the part of your platform that is on the public cloud is being managed, who has access to that, because there are also some regulations in terms of sovereignty about who or where the operators of the platforms can be in terms of in geography. So that's something that's been enforced as well in some countries in Europe.
Yeah. Well, it's very mind-opening in order to see how it works in the background with OpenShift, but also the ramifications for teams who need to manage customers and all these different zones and put it all together with OpenShift, right? Because that's the beauty of it. It's like typically I saw as an application developer, OpenShift is a place you can run cloud native containers, but also VMs with virtualization. And now it's like we're going another step, and it's like, that might just be for North America. What happens when you need to run for Germany, for Croatia, for Malaysia, all of these different zones that might have these different regulatory bodies? So it's really interesting that as a developer I don't really think about it, but then you go to infrastructure and ops, and it's like this is their concern. Is like, yes, the application's running, but how do we make sure that we abide by whatever policies and compliance we need to in order to actually serve the app? So it's pretty cool, man. It's great having you on the show.
Thank you. And that's why those cluster sets that we just saw, that serves for your example perfectly well. Imagine that you have some workloads that run in North America, some workloads that run in Germany. They need to abide by different laws and regulations. Just create different cluster sets and define different policies for them. And that's how you would achieve that.
It was awesome. You made it too easy, man. If y'all haven't seen Ricardo on the show before, he is our expert demo maker. Like, he's done a lot of these. He's a celebrity. He's a celebrity.
Thank you, Cedric, but no.
You absolutely rocked it with this one. And Rohan, if you don't mind pulling up the page here for the interactive demos. I think this is actually new because the one that Ricardo just showed today is also available if you go to interact.redhat.com, and now it's all in this little nice kind of tile here where you can actually try these demo experiences yourself and go through the process of creating the cluster and see how it would really work if you were about to set everything up. So highly recommend that you check out all the interactive demos. Ricardo, if you check out his profile here, he's got a bunch of them. So you've been working hard, and this is awesome, because if you're interested in digital sovereignty or many more types of demos, they're all available here. So I recommend you check it out. And as we kind of close up here, do you have any other resources or places that you'd like to send guests?
Yes, definitely. I was trying to, I don't know if I can ping on the chat, or I need to share with you guys. I think I cannot, no, I cannot put anything in the chat, but
it's okay. We can, if you throw it,
yeah,
if you throw it in Slack, we'll throw it in.
Yeah. I'll do that, Cedric.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Let me just, okay. So the actual demo that I was showing is also the complete demo that I mentioned earlier, with different pillars of sovereignties here. And this one that I just pinged you.
Sweet. I can actually pull it up on my side. 1 second. Yeah, this is you're seeing the behind the scenes now. So let me share my tab. Bam. So this is the one you're talking about, right?
Yeah, because it has different, like, sovereign cluster as a service, sovereign VM as a service. So there are different use cases. So it's for those who are interested in learning a bit more how to do the different as a service with ACM and ACS and OpenShift Platform Plus, they can do it there.
That's awesome. Thank you for providing that. And we got to drop it in the chat. Let's see. We'll put it in the chat here in a second. Let me go ahead and throw it in. And yeah, I mean, dude, it's been great having you on. If you're interested in this specific demo, we'll put it in the chat for now and to watch later. But appreciate you joining us today. Yeah, this has been great. And if you're interested in more of these fun demos that we get to show on, the projects and the products that make Red Hat possible to run, the applications you see every day, then feel free to like this video, hack the algorithm, subscribe to the channel. And we do this series about every 2 weeks. So next in 2 weeks on Tuesday, we'll be back with another live demo on the live stream with another special guest. But Ricardo, thank you so much for joining us. Any last words you want to leave the guest with?
I just want to thank you both, Cedric and Rohan. It's been great being here again. And I will share as well that assessment, the digital sovereignty assessment. So if we can put it in the chat later, maybe, because I need to look for it. So I invite anyone to have a look at it and see how sovereign they are operating so far, because it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think Rohan might have put the link in chat for you, which is great.
Oh, maybe. Perfect.
I think I have it up on my screen, but yeah, check that out. See, you might be surprised. And yeah, we'll see you back again in 2 weeks for another live session. But until then, enjoy the summer. What's also important is the game tonight, of course. So tune in. I promise that no one's going to be working today in the world. Global productivity is going to go down by 20%. If you look at it, and so, good game with everybody. And we'll see you guys again on the channel here shortly. On behalf of me, Cedric, Rohan, and Ricardo, we appreciate your time, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.